Hello and welcome to Ahval Podcasts, the home of objective, up-to-date and independent reporting on Turkey. Don't forget to follow our reports through social media, on ahvalnews.com or through our mobile app. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Talking Turkey. I'm your host, Ahval editor David Lepeska, and with me today is Dr. Ali Bakir, a political analyst based in the Turkish capital, Ankara. Hello, Ali, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
We are speaking on Monday, November 18. It's 5 days after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and U.S. President Donald Trump met in Washington, D.C. Most observers said the meeting didn't really change much, didn't make much of an impact, but mainly served to reinforce this idea that Trump seems willing to do what the Turkish president wants. What did you take away from the meeting? Was that your view?
Well, as you know, the meeting aimed at resolving some of the outstanding issues between the United States and Turkey, but although it didn't achieve a major breakthrough on the key issues, I think it was an opportunity to prevent further deterioration of the relations between Washington and Ankara. And also, it can be seen as a chance to continue directed dialogue towards a win-win situation. I think Turkish officials had a positive view of the meeting. They think that it was constructive. But at the end of the day, as you said, there was no concrete outcome of it. I think this is not an easy task, of course, given two things. First, most of the problematic issues between Turkey and the United States today are related to U.S. Policy in Syria, and this is, as you know, inherited from the time of Obama administration. And second, the inconsistency and deep divisions inside the U.S. Political establishment and within the U.S. administration itself. This is sort of causing confusion and frustration in Turkey. I think now both sides have a clearer view of what each of them think about the key problematic issues, and I think they will have now more time to go through them via dialogue. I think there is a chance to at least resolve some of these problematic issues.
Speaking of key issues, Trump said after the meeting that improved U.S.-Turkey relations will depend in large part on resolving the issue of Turkey's purchase of Russian-made S-400 missile defenses. Many fear that the threatened U.S. sanctions for the S-400 deal will only serve to push Ankara further toward Moscow, possibly leading it to purchase Su-35 fighter jets and closer military collaboration. Your thoughts?
Well, I can say that's right. As you know, U.S. wants Turkey to drop the S-400 deal, but from the Turkish perspective, this is impossible right now because it will have serious repercussions and implications on Turkey-Russia relations, both financial, economic, and also political. We should bear in mind that it was the United States who refused to sell Turkey the Patriot system, and this sort of left Turkey with no option but to go to Russia and buy the S-400. Now that both sides are stuck in this.
Well, to be clear, I mean, U.S. did not refuse; it just didn't offer the technology transfer that Turkey wanted.
It's not only about the technological transfer. There was also a financial issue and a technical issue. And at the end of the day, even if the United States, and this is from Turkey's perspective, and I see that they have right to think this way, even if the United States agreed at that time on selling Turkey the Patriot missile system, there is no guarantee that Washington will commit to this deal, because as you know, we have now an example, the F-35 multi-role fighters and jets. There is already a deal between the United States and Turkey, and Ankara already paid more than $1.5 billion, I think, but still the United States decided to suspend Turkey's enrollment in the program of producing the jets, and also refused to send the jets to Turkey. I mean, this is an example of how U.S. can be not credible in or live its commitments and achieve or execute the deals agreed between the two sides. So Turkey has a legitimate concern, I think. United States pushed Turkey towards Russia, and we have the S-400 now. How we can sort this issue? I think that, of course, Turkey will not agree to just not to deploy or activate the system, because at the end of the day they already paid for it, and they will not put it as a decoration. But they are saying that they are willing and open right now to also purchase the Patriot system if the U.S. administration is agreeing on the suitable conditions.
So you're suggesting that Turkey would have both the S-400 and the Patriots?
Turkish officials are saying openly that they are okay with this option, and I believe both sides, Turkey and States, will have a dialogue on this issue. They both presidents appointed the National Security Advisor O'Brien and also Ibrahim Kalin to discuss this matter, and both sides started this indeed.
An increasing number of Western analysts and officials and former officials have said that in part because of this S-400 deal and because of Turkey's offensive in Syria, that the U.S. should pull its nuclear weapons out of Incirlik Air Base in southeast Turkey. What's Turkey's view of this idea?
I think, look, there is a problem in the U.S., and American officials and our colleagues also are not ready yet to recognize it. They are saying that whenever there is a difference in perceptions, U.S. officials are taking really harsh stances. It's radical position. They are taking radical positions, and they are asking to kick Turkey out of NATO, to pull the nuclear warheads from Ankara, and to put sanctions on Turkey. And they don't look at the serious implications that these steps would result. One main and serious implication is to push Turkey more towards Russia, and I think this is not something good for Turkey and U.S. relations, or also for the region. And Turks are willing to do this if the United States is pushing this way. So they already proved this, and I think they should calm down a little bit, and they should think seriously about what they are doing, and take unless they take Turkey's interest and national security in consideration and deal with Turkey as a real partner and ally, this will have serious negative implications on the relations and on the region, in my opinion. I think healthy and constructive relation between Turkey and US is in the benefit of both sides and the region. And at the end of the day, United States right now, if United States is going to deal with the issue like either with us or against us, this will have negative results on the U.S. position in the region. At the end of the day, there are no real friends or allies in the region except Turkey. And even if the United States is going to deal with the issue with the Cold War mentality, they have to show credibility and consistency, and the United States is anything but these two issues right now.
That's true. Turning to Syria, the United Kingdom's Telegraph newspaper reported on yesterday, of a video in which a Turkey-backed rebel shouts, "Kill the pigs, kill the infidels," as he goes door to door, spray painting graffiti to mark which home belongs to a Kurd, which to a Christian, and which to a Muslim Arab, with the expectation that he would burn the first, loot the second, and leave the third untouched. This comes after reports of roadside executions, of these rebels targeting civilians, and of white phosphorus use. How do Turkish officials view these reports from northeast Syria? Do you expect Ankara to take responsibility if these crimes are proven?
Look, I just to make it clear, I didn't see this video, so I can't judge or comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the reports about the white phosphorus and also the chemical weapons, and these are black propaganda. I think every sane expert believes this. Regarding the other violations, other mentioned violations, if they really happened, I think that Ankara should investigate thoroughly in this issue, and if violations were committed by these fighters, they should put on court. But having said this, also we know that the YPG executed terrorist operations and committed before ethnic cleansing in the northern region in Syria, kicking Arabs, Turkoman, even Kurds who are not with the YPG were kicked out of the region, and some of them killed and tortured. So I think we should deal fairly with this issue. Whoever commits violations should put on court. I don't think that YPG or YPG supporters are ready to do this, but I insist that Turkey should do this if the fighters, the Free Syrian Army with it, is making or committing violations. They should be judged.
Yeah, many are charging Turkey and these Turkey-backed rebels with ethnic cleansing because of these reported acts, and in part because of Erdogan's plan to move up to 2 million Syrian refugees into this safe zone area. Is that still Turkey's plan to resettle all these refugees, or has the plan been changed because of all this international condemnation and because the safe zone is now smaller than Turkey hoped?
This issue is controversial. First, I would like to say that there is a misunderstanding of the demography in northern Syria. Originally, northern Syria is not a Kurdish populated area. The majority of the Kurds in northern Syria are in far northern eastern part of Syria and far eastern part of Syria. In the middle, it is mainly Arabs, and there are some Kurds in Ain al-Arab Kobani. So other than these three cantons, if we can say, the majority are Arabs. But after 2015, and because of the US support to YPG at that time, ethnic cleansing also, Arabs left this region, and many of the Kurds who opposed YPG. Now, the region at that time were re-engineered demographically, and YPG controlled more areas. Now, what Turkey is trying to do is to reverse this demographic re-engineering in the area, put back the Arabs, push back the Arabs to their homes and lands in that area, and also the Kurds who left their houses, so that the region can be more stable and more secure and free of the terror, whether it's Daesh or YPG. Now, I don't believe that in the current situation, 2 million Syrian refugees will return to this area. I think we are far, far behind this goal. There are a lot of reasons. First, we are seeing right now that things, although Turkey went for 2 agreements with the United States and Russia concerning the situation on northern eastern part of Syria, the region is not settled yet, and it needs more time, more commitment from all parties to settle it down. Second, the YPG is still a threat. As you know, the supported US group committed 2 suicide bombs in the last 10 days, resulting more than 30 civilian dead and also around 40 injured. So I don't think refugees will come back to places where car bombs are executed by the YPG. Third, there is also the main issue is the Assad regime. And Assad regime is preparing itself to take more lands in that area, and this would definitely not convince any refugees to come back to this area. Unless solving these three problems and starting to bring European Union into the table to contribute with the United States and Turkey to rebuild this region, I don't think we are going to see millions of refugees going back to Syria, because at the end of the day, unless also the Syrian regime problematic issue is solved and Assad being in power, refugees will not go back to their homes, at least the majority of them.
So you're saying Turkey still hopes to do this, but as of right now, it cannot do this plan because of the situation on the ground.
Exactly.
Okay. To move to a little bit more broader Turkish foreign policy, some of your research and analysis is related to the Gulf and Turkish relations toward Gulf states. I spoke to a leading Qatar analyst last week who believes the unusually close relations between Turkey and Qatar right now have a shelf life, that they will only last. This alliance between Turkey and Qatar will only last as long as the Gulf crisis continues, as long as the blockade continues. Do you agree with that?
Not fully. I don't fully agree with this conclusion. Of course, the alliance between Qatar and Turkey started in 2014, and since then it was growing constantly, and it also faced many challenges during the last few years. The Gulf crisis, the failed coup attempt in Turkey, the economic problems also in Turkey. So it successfully surpassed all these challenges. Now there is also the challenge of Al Jazeera English, obviously. I think that both sides can reach a solution where they can manage always to overcome whatever challenges in their face. Now, yes, there is rumors that the Gulf crisis will end soon. Of course, we can't say that this is something concrete, right now. There are
we don't know what's going to happen, for sure,
we don't know that this is going to happen, but and there are a lot of steps that needed to be taken from Saudi Arabia and UAE in particular towards Qatar in order to say that we have a serious breakthrough in the Gulf crisis. But maybe it will become less important. This is also speculations. I think that the alliance is strong. The urgency of this alliance maybe will not be as it is at then.
Well, I think some observers are saying that in part because if the crisis does end, I think most people expect that the Saudis will push Doha to agree to remove the Turkish base from Qatar. Would you expect that as well, as that for that to be part of the crisis agreement end?
No, I don't agree at all. First, I don't see Saudi Arabia in a position where it can force Qatar to do now what it failed to do before. Now Saudi Arabia is in a weaker position than in 2017. It needs the unity of the GCC in order to counter the threats of Iran under US pressure, also because of the Yemeni issue. Saudi Arabia seemed weak while facing Iranian military operations, including the Aramco attacks. So Saudi Arabia is not in a position to force Qatar to do anything right now. On contrary, they will try to appease Qatar. And Qatar main conditions are to, of course, first to drop the blockade and to end any threats against Qatar, and also to respect its sovereignty and its sovereign foreign policy. And choosing to have a Turkish base in Qatar is a sovereign decision. So I don't think this is going to happen. But maybe if the Gulf crisis ended and things, I wouldn't say things will go back as it was before 2017, because there will be lack of trust with Saudi Arabia and UAE. But maybe this will open also a window to improve Turkey-Saudi Arabia relations, or Turkey-UAE. We will see how things will go. But I don't think that Turkey-Qatar alliance will be deteriorated as a result of any GCC reconciliation.
So you see Saudi Arabia perhaps willing to accept some Turkish military presence in Qatar, even with an agreement to end the crisis?
They already accepted before the crisis. So I mean, when
but it was Qatar, one of the demands with the blockade.
You know, the demands failed, and they ended 10 days after they put it on air. And as I said before, now the blockading countries are not in a position to enforce Qatar do anything. So you have to forget about the 13 demands right now, and also the audience. I think that if they are really serious in resolving the Gulf crisis, they will just drop the blockade and respect Qatar's sovereignty. At that point, Qatar will be willing to enter into a constructive dialogue with Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Last question for you. Turkey has in the past dozen years built dozens of mosques beyond its borders, from Albania and the Balkans to Germany, France, the United States, Central Asia, Africa. I spoke to a former senior State Department official last week, David Phillips of Columbia University, who argues that because Turkey has supported terrorism, he says, he pointed to reports of Turkish intelligence sending weapons to ISIS and U.S. Treasury sanctioning Turkish entities for their support of a mosque. Because of this, he says that Turkish mosques are centers of radicalization and Ankara should be barred from building mosques abroad. What do you think of this?
Oh, I think that this is, of course, his personal opinion, and saying that Turkey is following some kind of radical version of Islam is not true at all in best cases. But at the end of the day, if Germany or any other country want to have its own regulations about the mosques inside its country or lands, they have the right to do so. But we have to ask the question, I mean, how would its Muslims or Turkish Muslims would perceive such a decision? I mean, would they take this step as giving the religious authority in Germany more credibility towards the Muslims, or less credibility? I mean, I think that this is the most important issue, and given that there is a rise lately in the sense of Islamophobia and right radical groups and the neo-Nazis, I think that most probably big part of the Muslims will not look positively to such steps. I might be wrong, but so we have to take this in consideration.
So you're saying Germany and other countries who would make moves to make their mosques and their Muslim communities independent from Turkey or other Muslim countries, they should be careful to not marginalize these communities.
Yeah, I mean, how these communities will perceive such decisions and steps from Germany or any other states is important, because as we say that they might be looking to make these institutions more independent, some communities may see it in a different way. They may see it that these states are trying to control such institutions in order to serve the state's agenda, and this would harm the credibility of these institutions. And taking in consideration, as I said, the rise of Islamophobia and the rise of new Nazi groups and the right radicalism, they wouldn't probably see this step as positive.
Dr. Ali Bakir, thanks so much for your time and insight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.